zustimmen?
Ist recorded. Ich habe nicht zugestimmt, aber es recorded.
Ah, okay.
Perfekt, funktioniert.
Anyways, okay. So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Sören Von Varchim to this, whatever it might be, this show. We've known each other for a while, but Sören has a very, very interesting story, both in his life, but also in the context of what's happening right now. And I guess I wanted to ask you to put things in context. How did we meet again? I don't think either of us really remember, do we?
Actually, yes. Hi, everyone, and thanks for inviting me, Diarmud. When you sent me the questions prior to this video podcast here today, I had to think actually a little bit. I mean, I know where we met, but I had to, I don't remember exactly the year. It must have been the mid-2000s. I was working at a company called Parallels back then, running business development. And you were actually my counterpart running business development at a hosting company called 1&1. So, and back then, the two companies decided that there is a need for an industry standard for the so-called one-click web applications. So this is a standard thing nowadays, and it gave a big push to the overall industry. But back then, when this decision was made between 1&1 and Parallels to push that open standard, we both got into charge. Yeah. So back then I was living in the US and you were living in Germany back then in Karlsruhe at 1&1 headquarters. And we were kind of put together to establish that standard. So we were, both of us, we were running around from ISV to ISV, convincing them that one-click applications make sense. And on the other side, we also convinced other players, including GoDaddy, for example, to adopt that standard as well. So this is 12, 13 years ago. It developed a lot, but what we created back then in these mid-2000s, in these early days of one-click WordPress and so on, that was basically what you see nowadays as the de facto standard of one-click applications. So for anyone here listening to this one, what does one-click application basically mean? So if you install some kind of software on a Windows computer, you have an exe file, an execution file to basically install it. But that doesn't work with web applications. There's no .exe, for web applications. So it needs to be a different format how these applications are installed on the web, on the website, and also how those are updated. And this is how we met, and I think we immediately liked each other as friends. We became very good friends. Our family knows each other now for a very long time. And I mean, as life goes, we are almost neighbors now, 12 years thereafter, living in Barcelona.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, all right. Maybe as well, moving more into you yourself rather than about us. So about Sören, and how does one go about like building up to becoming a CEO of an event company, which is definitely not a route I ever thought would be the route that you would take. How did that happen?
Okay, that's a very good question as well. I mean, as I mentioned before, I worked for a very long time with Parallels. I'm considered one of the co-founders. I built the European and Asian operations in the early 2000s when there was this big boom and Parallels was growing like crazy. And however, I mean, not many people know that, but my very, very first company after I finished my apprenticeship at Frankfurt Airport, at Fraport, I had a tour operator business for Indian Ocean. So I was like 18 or 19 when I started the company. I sold it when I was 21. And what I did back then, I was basically specialized on Seychelles and Mauritius as the two destinations in Indian Ocean. And this was prior to internet. This was like 93 or 94 when I started that company. So basically, our catalog was a CD-ROM, which I shipped, So that was already some kind of multimedia in it, yeah. But it was way before the internet. And I was concentrating in organizing honeymoons as well as weddings, mainly in Seychelles, as well as TV, film productions, all the on-ground help basically, and then catalog productions, mainly underwear, swimwear, and stuff like that. For the big brands, because Seychelles is one of the most beautiful destinations to shoot such kind of content. And so what I learned in my apprenticeship at Frankfurt Airport, as well as my first company running this tour operator business, like I always had this flavor for hospitality. And then through whatever weird ways, I ended up in this parallels universe, selling control panels in Europe and Asia and running business development, which I totally liked, but my heart is really with this hospitality thing, and I really like to organize things for other people. And now I kind of, with running Cloudfest and NamesCon, I can combine both, the hospitality event fact, as well as the underlying knowledge of the industry, which I obviously built up over the last 20 years.
Okay, that is probably the shortest version of that story that I think that one could ever get. I know there's so many different things in there along the way. But let's talk about Cloudfest and its history and what makes it different from other events.
Oh yeah, okay. We went through a couple of renamings of that show. It's called Cloudfest now, I think, since 3 years. It's known as World Hosting Days before, which is a very long word. It made sense for a couple of years until it was time for a rebrand. However, this event is now, with the exception of this year, obviously running for 15 or 16 years already. And I only joined that company as a CEO 7 years ago, but I was one of the speakers at the very, very first World Hosting Day, 15 or 16 years ago. I'm not 100% sure, which was back then taking place in Cologne, and it was more like let's call it more like a meetup of a German hosting industry, like the first time, where a guy from 1&1 saw someone from Strato back then. It was the very first time that something like this happened, and let's call it a meetup, the first one with like 80 attendees or so, which grow a lot over time. The founder is Thomas Strohe, who is also the founder of Interginia, which he sold to Host Europe before it got acquired by GoDaddy. He's invested in a lot of businesses still in our industry. He owns a large hosting company in Germany now, and has a lot of other investments, for example, into Plesk and cPanel with WebPros and so on. So he is actually the founder of that whole thing. And at one point in 2013, he kind of approached me and said, "Look, we are at this gap with World Hosting Days. We now make 7-digit revenue with our sponsors and so on, and now we have to make a decision if we go on running it like as we do under the radar, or if we put more energy behind it. So why don't you run it as the CEO and build it out in whatever way you think it makes sense?" And that was 7-8 years ago. And since that I'm on board, 3 years ago, we did the rebranding to Cloudfest. That's the short story, I would say, but we can go a little bit more into the details.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, do you think that World Hosting Days even back then was different than a lot of other events? Did it have something special about it? Because I know Cloudfest is, totally different to most other things out there.
Yeah, okay. Yes, okay, let me give you a little bit of history here as well. So after the first year in Cologne downtown with 80 people with a meetup, the year after, Tom already decided to move it into a theme park. There's a theme park very close to Cologne, which is called Phantasialand. So we were there for 4, 5, 6 years until Phantasialand became too small from the venue and from the hotel capacities. So we moved it to Europa Park, which is also a theme park. It's much, much bigger than Phantasialand. It's most likely the biggest one in Europe, or one of the biggest ones in Europe. and where we had more capacity, not only with hotels, but also with floor space and things what we can do. So I mean, if you already hear that, you know, like an event which is taking place in a theme park, it already sounds kind of fucking weird, yeah. So and and I think this weirdness factor, and in combination with the fact that, I mean, theme parks are never in a central city location. They are remote somewhere. That means people can't go away, you know. So people are kind of stuck in the Alcatraz of the industry, you know, for a week or so,
Yeah.
and that makes it totally different, you know, from any other event, you know, you might have experienced. But look at you guys, you know, you guys with Submer as a sponsor, you like it, right? Because like once
Absolutely.
someone arrives at that thing, you can be sure that this person is not leaving for another 4 or 5 days, you know? So you know what to do then, right? That's the
Yes,
difference.
indeed.
And that's also why I think a lot of sponsors love us and are willing to pay a premium, because the access is amazing to the people. Like also, you know, if you make an event in a theme park, you need to do a different kind of entertainment or social events than, like, let's say you have an event in the city somewhere in downtown Cologne or downtown London or whatever. So that means like all our social activities are around the fact of bringing the community closer together and helping to enable business, you know, among attendees as well as partners and sponsors. And after the move from Phantasialand to Cloudfest, it was still under the World Hosting Days brand for the first couple of years. And when I thought, okay, now it's time not only for a new name, but for a little bit of a rebrand, you know. And the idea behind that was like how to make business B2B events cool again. So actually, I'm lecturing that on in universities right now with the role model of Cloudfest. So showing them the Rammstein videos with the fire and shit. You know, it's like, it's for people, it's a big bang. You know, it's like, I think for everyone who first comes here to something like Cloudfest, they're like, what the fuck is this? You know, what's going on here? You know, we kind of blast the people, but we deliver for everyone what they need, you know. And this is our theme, you know, as a team, you know, saying like, look, our attendees here for the next 5 days, they are the most important people on earth, you know. And we as a team, we make sure that everyone is satisfied, you know. This is our credo when we arrive in Europa Park 10 days before setting everything up and getting started.
Yeah, it's also a very, very different feeling being part of that, and you're not feeling, oh, they're trying to milk money out of me, which is kind of a little bit of what people think about event companies generally. But maybe, so Cloudfest, a little like GoDaddy, is or was one of the few events which was still managing to hold its own or managing to grow in a world of declining numbers. GoDaddy, obviously, you know, against the flat hosting kind of trend, GoDaddy still growing quite strongly. And then Cloudfest still managing at least to hold those numbers and hold its own, whereas everyone else is experiencing, even before our current situation, quite a rapid decline. Why do you think that is? Is it just because of the same things that you were saying, because of that? Or did you have something in mind, something special that you made happen?
Yes, I think we have a couple of things which make us more special than other ones with similar problems. I mean, compared to what you mentioned with GoDaddy, I think like our challenges were a little bit different. I see them more in consolidation. So let me give you a couple of examples. Like just with Johannes, our head of sales, we were taking a look into our exhibitors of the last 3 years, and we had 32 mergers or acquisitions among our partners. You know, it's like IBM buying Red Hat, Plesk merging with cPanel. You know, what does it lead to? Or VMware with Dell. You know, like there's a lot of these examples. You know, and it leads up from 2 booths, you know, or 2 budgets to 1.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's something we have to live with. And then on the other side, we also have a challenge on the attendee side, like we have mega consolidations happening every week. There's a new announcement with one hoster acquiring another one. We have 5, 6, 7, 8 big consolidators in that world who every week acquire a new company. And here it's the same thing at the end. That means event business is good in a decentralized industry. The more centralized an industry it's getting more difficult with events. So, and we said, okay, we face that challenge on both sides. It's like there's no time, to complain about it or say like, oh, what do we do or whatever. It's like, okay, let's do it good. I mean, it's like you said, we kind of stay very stable, and it's like, okay, how do we keep our relevance for the whole industry? So also with the rebranding of Cloudfest 3 years ago, I was thinking we need a couple of things implemented where we build a strong community around Cloudfest. And that is something which we are doing more and more over the last 3 years. Like one little thing, what we do, not only that we are almost neighbors right now, we are also band members. We haven't talked about that yet, right? So we started with this band, lots of uptime, and I consider it as an industry community band, but what we want to achieve or what we want to show with that is like we are the same people like you, and there's a bond between us, between stage and audience, listening to it, and we make mistakes because we are amateurs, we're human beings like everyone else, but that doesn't matter, because like we want you to participate from what we prepared basically for you that evening, and with perceptions or with perception, which we build it with that, and with this community engagement that we have with only that one little example, what we build it here is amazing to see. And this is something which I see as a trend against this consolidation happening in our industry, that we do this in order to keep the community together.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come back to music, but I just a really honest question about how you viewed, let's say, traditional event business prior to all of this COVID-19 situation, because that to me has always been something I'm really interested in your view on that.
Do you mean, Diarmud, how it is changing now in the future?
No. Like, let's say we'll come to that in a moment. I'm just talking about before this situation. What was your view of the traditional conference or event business? We had Hosting Con in our industry. We had other things like that. Obviously, they went by the wayside, etc. But what was your view looking at that, at those traditional businesses?
Yes, I mean, at the end, our industry is still a niche industry. It's only a couple thousands or a couple of 10,000s of people, working overall in this, let's say, mass market and managed hosting industry. So it's a rather small industry, and I think if you look at other B2B events, who were in the same old setup and trying to survive like with the same concept for 10 years, like you mentioned, Hosting Con, it's clear. I mean, obviously they fail after a while, I think the difference is what we have with Cloudfest is we have a team who's very willing to reinvent, and reinvent themselves or ourselves. So we're not saying, oh, we always did it like this, so this is why we do it also next year. No, we question ourselves like every time, how we can make it better and how can we reinvent ourselves. And to be honest, I think compared to also other stories I heard from in other events in similar size in that space who don't do this reinvention every 2 or 3 years, and they fail with that, especially with our team and with spirit, like, yes, we do something new, we do it better next year. We do it better, always with the attendees in mind, that really helped to transform it from a B2B event into a real festival, Obviously, we have role models, like me personally, I watch what Web Summit is doing, or Collision, the whole group of around Paddy Cosgrave. I'm really liking the way how they also reinvent themselves very, very quickly. And on the other side, South by Southwest in Austin. So whenever I think about how to make something cool and better at the same time, I take those events as a role model.
Okay. I mean, from my side, I've been looking at the tired other events. I've been involved and am involved now in a neighboring industry, a data center industry, whatever. You'd think it's the same. It can be totally different, and it needs a shake-up. So for me, thinking about how this situation now with COVID-19 has impacted yours and other businesses worldwide in the event business, just sticking to that, my kind of little feeling is it kind of needed a shake-up, yeah? But,
What do
you think?
It's a very good point, Diarmud. And it's, again, I mean, me and my team, we are not afraid, we are working with the upcoming challenges and so on. I mean, our year was a complete shit, as you can imagine. We had NamesCon in Austin in the last week of January, and it was already starting, it's like all the Asian exhibitors as well as attendees didn't come, when some other ones were already afraid, who understood very early that something worse is going on. So, I mean, NamesCon was okay, but we were like 20% maybe less than what we planned on the budget. And then, I mean, Cloudfest, the termination of the event, that was a tough one, for everyone. But I had 2 or 3 weeks of sleepless nights around it before we made the decision, which was at the end, obviously, a good one. And yeah, and I mean, after a lethargic state of 1 or 2 weeks, we all went back to work from home, obviously. And we're like, okay, so what do we do now? How can we reinvent us from scratch again? So we said, okay, let's make a couple of, we're like 15, 16 people in our company. It's rather small. We said, okay, let's make like 3 or 4 project teams, where each one is doing something with one leader in it, and each team is trying to find some new ways of running virtual stuff, from what you're doing here right now, like a podcast or video podcast, or like I do this Cloud Unchained event, like bi-weekly, had one 2 nights ago, and it was amazing, So, so this is maybe a good example. So this event, Cloud Unchained, which we do bi-weekly, next one is May 26th. 8 o'clock Central European time. This concept is working very well. We have like 300 to 400 attendees on each of the events. Executives from all the major cloud service providers are joining it. Like I'm amazed by the quality of people who are in that. You see C-level from 1&1, GoDaddy, you name it, Namecheap, Locaweb, TWS, Dogado, like all the large CSPs, the executives are joining that event. And like our format is, we make like a short industry interview with someone, let's say from AMD or DevTech or so. And then we do like this executive CSP panel. Yes, 2 nights ago, we had Wix, host Papa, 1&1 Jonas on that, the executives. And that is what the audience wants to hear. And it's bringing the audience together. And then we have some fun entertainment parts. So we showed a video of lots of uptime, like 2 editions before. 2 days ago, we made a Zoom virtual auction of some Williams memorabilia, which was a lot of fun. We've signed jackets from the drivers of Williams Formula One team and so on for our school projects. So it's working. It's really working. I mean, in the last 4 weeks, only for our school projects with these virtual events, we collected close to 20,000 euro online via Zoom. That is amazing. And when you
Yeah.
have 400 or 500 people together, they're from 54, 55 countries online. And that is a format we for sure we found out this is working, and we go on providing that regardless what's happening. Actually, I need to come back to your question a little bit. So meanwhile, we also had to cancel. We have this other conference named SCON for the domain industry, domain aftermarket specifically, and we had a little event planned in August in Budapest this year, which we obviously also had to cancel. Yeah, we canceled 2 or 3 weeks ago, and and now the team around Helga and Timo, they are building on a real complete but cool one, not like the shitty one like you have to attend right now. Like we're building on a real cool concept using NamesCon as a brand and as a learning platform also for us, trial and error, which is also fine. You can always make mistakes in the beginning. I think no one is mad at you.
Yeah.
So, but we use that now to make a NamesCon virtual conference towards the end of the year. So, but how to change?
Yeah. I wanted to just come back to two things where I wanted to really take my virtual hat off to you. One thing was with Cloudfest and with the cancellation, there was no question of, a part of the sponsorship money or whatever. You guys just really basically looked after all of your audience, and there was no nonsense, right? That was one thing that really impressed me, I have to say. And really hats off to you guys. I know it's a big hit, because all of the other conferences that we're involved in, pretty much none of them, first of all, they didn't want to cancel until the last minute, and some of them were partly on the other side of the world, so you already had all your expenses incurred, and some of them were offering a partial refund or whatever else. Sorry, we've paid for something. You're going like, I have nothing from it. So I don't think that's a way to look after your customers or your community. But you really did. You absolutely did. And I take my hat off to you. And I think also everybody in the industry is really happy about that. So thank you. The second thing, again, even with this Cloudfest Unchained that you've been doing over the last couple of weeks, you have been reinventing that one with every single episode that comes along. So I think that's also really cool, that you're managing to do that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Diarmud. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, it's trial and error, and we were always thinking how we make it better in the next phase. And it's like my credo also working with the team is like, let's get something started and make it better over time, and because if you don't start, nothing happens.
This is where we're so similar, right? Some people don't get that. Some people don't get that. They think you need everything planned to the nth degree before something. And honestly, the first step is to get it started. You start with an idea and you try it.
Exactly.
And that's it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Really cool.
It's the way how we do that, and this way it's getting better every time. I mean, we have a debriefing, obviously, the night or even after or the day after, with the team and our partners who participated, collecting all the feedback and implementing all the good feedback, into the next show. So the one in 2 weeks, we will have amazing guests, like best ever. We already know it. We have a real celebrity actually coming up. So we are working on it. And it's also, we get more and more feedbacks from partners, proactively approaching us, saying like, oh, this is a cool project. Can we participate like next one as a sponsor or whatever? So sure, and we're learning with that, like how to implement it. Okay, we know how to implement the sponsor at our Cloudfest physical event. So here we have to learn a little bit more, what are the brandable items, what makes sense for sponsor, how do we give the value back, and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're getting better with that every 2 weeks. But and also, I want to really answer your question regarding how I see what's happening next. So we started Cloudfest 2021 sponsorship and partner sales last week. So And the first batch was amazing. So we usually have around 200 exhibitors at Cloudfest and partners, and we had the first 15-17% coming in back immediately after basically first email went out, partnership is open. So for us, it's obviously a little bit a heat wave or a indicator where things are going for 2021. So my personal perception, like looking into March 2021 right now, is the following. I'm quite confident that the event will take place. That's most important and number one. However, there might be some restrictions which we have to deal with coming from Ministry of Health in Germany or Robert Koch Institute or some local authorities. So there are already guidelines out there for event organizers, especially in Germany, from Ministry of Health, and we are 100% conform with our planning. So let's say if something happens where, let's say, it's just an example, this Colosseo where we always play with lots of uptime. This is just, there's no such rule yet. It's just a hypothetical idea. If it says like, okay, there can be only 1,000 people on that plaza, for example, which is good for 5,000 people, but it's like, okay, if there's like this restriction to 1,000 people, on that plaza, we are able to do that. We are internally getting prepared for all these scenarios which might happen, or let's say food, but there's no buffets, but lunch boxes and stuff like that. In case it's needed, our head of operations he's like super well prepared for all eventualities which might happen. However, for now, there are we see this event happening, and the standard stuff anyway, with the hygienic stuff and cleaning. We have a good concept with Europa Park in place. Europa Park is opening to public actually in the last week of May, in 2 weeks from now on. So and I mean they have also some restrictions, but they have like 10,000 people there or something in the park, on a weekend, even after the restrictions. So in a way, we, together with Europa Park, we feel very well prepared for any eventualities to make this happen.
Really cool. I mean, myself, I know I'm going to very much dial down and feel like less comfortable going to events. I was actually at an event shortly before the lockdown happened here. And actually, I returned on the 13th of March, which was the day before the lockdown we had here. And that event, I can tell you, it was in London, and it was very uncomfortable. And 2 weeks later, that particular place was transformed into a field hospital. So the exact place. But like, still, do you see, like with this online now, that a lot of that business can go online? Is it going to generate revenue for people like you if that happens? What do you think?
Okay, from event organizer perspective, I doubt that any virtual format can make you as much money as a physical format.
Okay.
So I doubt that. But also, I think what you will see with Cloudfest 2021, that it will become into a hybrid event. So I think hybrid events are the thing of the future. Where you basically serve both, because like you said before, I'm the same way as you. It's like I was also traveling like until 2 or 3 days before lockdown, and I knew it would already come, but I had to fly to Europa Park to solve our contract stuff for the cancellation for 2020, and I already had a bad feeling, flying, and I was in Colosseo Hotel. There were only like 5 guests, including us, and it was sad. One day after we left, they shut down everything. So it was very weird and strange, to see that. And I was a little bit angry with myself that I actually even did that trip. However, I agree with you. there will be a change in business travel specifically. So either from the companies or from the individual working for those companies, there will be a change in behavior for sure. So, I mean, clearly there will be much less business travel in the future. And I also see that with Cloudfest, but that is fine, What we will try to do is we try to capture the people who are not able to travel or for whatever reasons don't want to travel, in March, we will also provide to some extent a hybrid virtual format.
Okay, looking forward to it, obviously.
And I think this will go on not only short term. Like my opinion is like that change in behavior will be long or forever. It will change the way how we act or how we do things.
Yeah, I think, we had certain people, very prominent, who were warning that this kind of thing which has happened is one of the big things which could happen to slow us down. But other opinions I've heard have meant that for the next 10 years, for instance, it will remain in the living memory, at least. So people are going to behave differently.
So, I mean, Diarmud, the big shit about that is we can't play with lots of uptime in front of a physical, or we couldn't this year at least, Let's see if we can do it in 2021. I hope so. But like
that's exactly where I was getting to, Sören. I really wanted to ask you. So, we've been obviously trying to meet every week, like as a band, and doing that kind of stuff. And we've done a couple of recordings. One we did just prior to the lockdown, so at the beginning of this year. And then another one we did from our own respective lockdown houses and stuff, having some fun with doing stuff and just keeping in touch as well, because that's what it's about. It's about the music and the people. But obviously, I'm looking forward to playing a lot more music with you in future, and actually together, not just across video screens, but that will be cool. Is there any maybe kind of parting words of wisdom that you would give people, let's say relating to the event business and stuff like that, particularly with tech and tech companies, and obviously people who are going to be looking really hard at their budgets and wondering how they can reappropriate that particular money at the moment? What's your message to those, both in the event business and to the companies who are used to leaning on events as one of their main demand generation activities?
Oh, kannst du das rausstreichen?
I see. No problem.
Okay. Ich war nicht so richtig drauf. I wasn't really prepared for this question. No, let's keep it out. It's
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. No. So really, it just remains for us to wrap up, yeah. And really to say, Sören, I thank you so much, for your time. Obviously, you're a friend. You have no choice. That's absolutely the way it goes. It's the advantage, but also, even during this year, we've all been keeping in touch and all been doing this stuff. So, and also with Cloudfest, of course, you've got a great team, it has to be said. A lot of great people there. Jordan is killing it, actually, at the moment as a presenter.
Moderator.
And then you've got a lot of people in the back office, and you can really see things coming together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Diarmud.
All right.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And you know what? I mean, nothing beats about meeting in real life, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. It's been too long.
We need physical events. We need physical events, right?
We need the physical contact in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, what we can do is, we already thought about that. In 2021, in case Cloudfest, if something happens and we are all locked in Colosseo Hotel, we just get a couple of lawyers coming in, with us into the quarantine and work with us in the Colosseo bar on deals.
Great, because the other idea that I had was that we were all going to have these virtual reality suits on, and that we were all going. But I think your idea is better, yeah?
Okay.
Okay.
I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Listen, take care. We'll be talking soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Perfekt.
Sehr gut. Danke dir.
Hey,
Hey, das
dir
war
hat
ziemlich
Spaß
gut.
gemacht. Das hat
Das
Spaß
war
gemacht.
ziemlich gut.